When historians will look back on this game, they will all agree that it happened. That was a fantastic performance by the LA Kings. Thank you, everyone that joined us. We have a great guest tonight. It's Marco D'Amico. You can see him right now. He is live. He is my colleague on Montreal Hockey Now. You can hear him on TSN 690 and other platforms. We'll get into that in a minute. Before we start, I am Marc Dumont, and I want to thank everybody for showing up. I feel like I should have free coupons for something or other and give them to you right now because that was a rough game, and I don't know if the government would have had paid me $7 million if I'd watch it again. That's how bad that was. So we're gonna get into it. We're gonna talk about all sorts of fun stuff. As per usual, the chat's the most important part. So thank you all for joining us. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Marco will answer them. Don't forget to hit subscribe and like, all the other stuff that every single YouTuber will ever say. And for now, I do want to say you are all the MVPs. The fact that we got 40 people live right now, that's just blowing my mind. So, as Samuel Atias mentions in the chat, blanked 4-0 by the Los Angeles Kings. Not the greatest outing. Marco D'Amico, my buddy, how's it going?
It's been better. It's definitely been better.
Who are you? Who are you? Jonathan Kovacevic? Is that it? It's been better?
Yeah, well, I mean, steady Jonathan Kovacevic. At least someone's got to be steady.
It's not, yeah. And the worst part is guys like him and Matheson, who I was like, man, they're being so reliable. They're having a hard time out there. Matheson's playing better, but let's get your impressions of the game tonight, because I remember once, and I'm going to tell a quick story. I was going into court to fight. It turns out the city of Ottawa had suspended my license. And what happened is I had a speeding ticket that never got to me. They sent it to the wrong address. So it was like literally the first day I got my car. Acura TL, I'm booming down the highway. Not the new ones, the older ones. I pass a police officer because I'm smart like that, right?
No.
Yeah, on the Queensway. And so I'm going maybe like 135. Okay, fair enough. I get it. It was the first and last time I ever got caught for speeding. And about a year later, I get a notice from my neighbor, and he's like, "Oh yeah, the city of Ottawa sent this to you." So my license was suspended, and they're telling me come to the court. And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, I'll do that." And I went at about 8 in the morning. It was one of those classic minus 40 nights, 40 mornings. I'm in my suit, looking good. I got a nice big coffee. As I'm walking into City Hall, slip on ice, pour the entire coffee onto my, like scalding coffee onto my face. But because it was minus 40, it instantly froze all over me. Okay. And that was less terrible than what we just saw from the Montreal Canadiens, is what I'm trying to get at. That was a lot less embarrassing than the effort. How do you think Martin St. Louis is feeling right now, Marco?
Rage, unbridled rage. And I don't blame him to a degree, but at the same time, with the injuries that they've had, the roster that was put together,
Mm-hmm.
I expected effort, sure. But in terms of talent versus talent, in terms of physical play versus the type of team they are right now, what did you expect?
That's
And
a
I don't
really
think
fair
it's a
point.
question of Jake Allen sucks. I think it's a question of, I'm sorry, this is not a team that can keep up against the top teams in the league. Sure, they're going to look nice right out of the gate. Young teams look good right out of the gate
Mm-hmm.
because the first 10 to 15 games don't mean much to veterans. But when the wheels get going and the greasing is done, that's when the big boys come to play. And LA, big boy
Yeah.
this season. They've made the trades. I mean, even they started off really slow, or relatively slow, and now they've taken off. You see, like, to me, like, that's a team for all those people that are afraid of the Canadians not going after stars. That's a team that doesn't have any stars, and they're gonna bulldoze you.
Yeah.
My only problem with them is a net, but that didn't seem to be a problem tonight for Phoenix Copley.
Yeah.
But eventually, like, this is gonna be a problem. So like when you want to build out a team like that, you want to be a competitive team, you're gonna need some firepower. Canadians have no firepower right now.
Yeah, and I think you're bringing up a good point, because those last two wins against Anaheim and San Jose, listen, they were fun, but the discrepancy in talent was clearly obvious today when we're seeing the Habs face a team that actually has some semblance of depth. And listen, K. Francis says in the chat, Jake Allen sucks. Listen, tonight he sucked. I'll say that. I'll say it freely. But as Trizak mentions right there, how dare Jake Allen not score a goal? You can never blame your goaltender when you lose 4-0. And it's not even that the Habs had no goals. They had very few chances, right? So tonight was a reality check, as Marco mentions there, that the Montreal Canadiens just aren't quite there yet. Now, you say no stars, but they just signed a guy for $7.5 million a year. Isn't that... oh, it's 8? Well, got 8?
8.5 million.
Woo! Good for them, and good for Marc Bergevin for finally getting his guy.
But, like, Anze Kopitar is no longer a star.
Although, you know what, Marco, maybe this
Trevor
year...
Moore is 28 years old, so I don't know about one day.
Kopitar's playing like a star this year, though. Like, to a...
Still, like, he's a point per game. I think we have to see what the point total is now, but, like, Kevin Fiala, to me, is the star. Like, Kevin Fiala, if you're going to approach a star... was a star, and that was a player that was acquired. Why? By a trade, RFA, to a team that had a boatload of cap space, a boatload of assets, and a first-round pick to blow. Like, those are the kinds. If you're a Montreal Canadiens fans, like, that's what you're kind of waiting for. On top of them continuing to stockpile and trade for assets. Yes, it's not going to be pretty, but do we remember what the LA Kings looked like between like 2017 and 2021? It was terrible.
They had terrible. They had Kopitar. That was like basically it there, right?
Kopitar and Doughty was nothing to write home about then either. Mm-hmm. You know, so you weren't dealing from a position of strength either.
So you're saying this is a bit of a blueprint then for because listen, we've talked about the issue with the Habs with the stars. I've mentioned that Vegas went ahead and they just grabbed their stars like that. Now, okay, not every team's getting rid of a Mark Stone for like half a Toblerone or whatever the Sens got back from him, and Jack Eichel's no longer in his prime. But when I mentioned Vegas, I'm also kind of ignoring that they got to start fresh, right? Which is not the case with any team. So do you really feel that Los Angeles is the better model for the Montreal Canadiens right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's the better model today because the cap has been flat for 3-4 years, right? Like, as the cap goes up, things are going to change. Now, will salaries go up to the same percentage point as the salary cap itself, right? Because we're going to see a 5% increase at least over the next 3 to 4 years because they've just made bank and they've caught up to all the escrow that they've lost.
Escrow's finally paid off. Yeah.
Right. And then if there's expansion in those 3 to 4 years, well, then the percentage point might increase. We're going to be talking about 6-7% because they're allowed in an expansion year to increase that much.
Does expansion count towards what's the term for the money that they use?
The gross revenue of the league?
Yeah, does expansion
hockey
count?
Related revenue, it's
yes.
HRR, yeah.
Yeah, okay, HRR. Yes. Does it count? Does expansion?
It does not. It does not.
That's why the owners love it, eh?
But it's extra revenue from ticket sales once that team comes in. It's TV deals that get renegotiated after the fact that expand because you have new markets that they're looking to get into. Like if they go to Salt Lake and I'm sorry for saying this, the Atlanta market for a third time, you're opening up two undervalued markets that would like hockey and don't have hockey, even though, yes, there is a market not too far from us that would probably enjoy their team as well.
Sudbury, yeah.
Yeah, so, great hockey town. I love the Wolves, though.
Michael Pezzetta, alumni.
yeah, big time. It's just like to me, when you look at the way that the Kings are built out, they're built out in a way that's sustainable. I mean, they're right up against the cap, but next year, Anze Kopitar is taking a pay cut, so that's going to give them space. They're going to have the ability, to be able to come up with an idea of what they want to do with their forward group, because defensively, Brandt Clarke is still playing for the Ontario Reign, right? Like this is probably going to be a top pair defenseman for them down the line. But he's
a point per game. He's a point per game in the AHL as a monster. Is he 20 yet? Did he turn 20? Either way, he's young.
No, but it's his draft plus 2 seasons, so he's getting there.
He's basically where Florian Jacki is in terms of like overall age there, So yeah, okay.
I think he's a year older.
Yeah, but in terms, we're talking about months here, not a year and a half there, So.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I don't remember exactly the month, but again, like their top, arguably, I think
is not yet
their top prospect, and he's still not there yet. And, imagine when he jumps in. We had Jordan Spence playing today. Like, imagine, like, when all their defense starts to piece together, they can move out some guys, extra salary to go and get even, maybe get that final upgrade in net, and then you're gone. You're going for it.
And I love that
So
the getting the goalie at the end to me is a great strategy. That one that the Canadians might want to.
it is the way. Unless you luck out like Tampa Bay and you get the Vezina
The one
with a
that's
mid
worth
to
the
late
money.
first
Yeah.
round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that makes sense. But like unless someone like that comes a fallen,
Go grab
I
him.
don't see the point.
So, and we're going to get into it. If you have any questions about trades, listen, I'm not going to trade all the goalies tonight. Everyone always says that I trade the goalies. I'm actually going to defend Jake Allen tonight. Again, you never blame a goalie when they get, when the team can't score. But we're going to talk about potential trades in a little bit. One of the interesting things that you bring up, Marco, and I'm wondering if the Canadiens will be able to do this is, okay, so Brent Clark next year, it's not just that he's going to have value. He's going to count for $1 million on the cap. Now, I don't know how his bonus is. It might go up to $3 million, but regardless, we're talking about a guy who's going to bring great value on his entry-level contract. Are the Habs going to be able to capitalize, you think, on their guys coming up? Like, they're going to burn Slafkovsky's entry. That's fine. That the development's happening in the NHL. Whether we like it or not, it's happening. And he's looking good recently. But guys like Meshaw, guys like Beck, guys like Lane Hudson, guys like Jacob Fowler, it almost feels like the Canes will actually have an opportunity to be good and also have guys on their ELC.
Well, and I guess this is why I don't kind of get, I don't watch this team and think, the sky is falling. This reminds me very much of where the New Jersey Devils were at the start of their rebuild. Like people thought that they were going to bounce back within year 3 or 4. I don't think so. I think this is 2025 at the earliest that we're starting to talk about a turnaround because they're lacking that many pieces. But they're going to be by no fault of their own. Like they're going to be a bottom 10 team, if not worse, this season, and that will bring in its own situation. Will they get a top 10 pick? Will they trade the top 10 pick? Will they draft another player? You continue to add these players, and I think every single Canadiens fans agrees. You can think what you want about all of the players that they've selected so far, but at a certain point in time, they're gonna get it right. That's if you're the most pessimistic Canadiens fan, at least you can agree with that. At one point, they're gonna look out.
Absolutely.
Because you can't miss on all of those top 5 picks. Like even the New York Rangers, whom everybody will look at as a means to discrediting Nick Bobrov, still got it right on certain first-round picks. Like Condre Miller is a stud. You can't say anything to that. I mean, Alexis Lafreniere is turning it around right now. But again, like those were, one is a no-brainer. The other one they traded up for and everybody was confused. So to me, you got to acquire the assets. You got to stockpile. The biggest issue in this Canadiens franchise for the last 20 years, other than having a star player, is the patch job because they didn't have a star player, because they traded assets the moment they had them available to try and patch. And I mean, you look at the Sergachev trade, that's exactly what it is.
I was thinking Alex Tanguay, actually. For some reason that came
Alex
to my mind.
Tanguay traded. Well, I mean,
yeah, I know, I'm going back.
A late first round.
Yeah, and it was Greg Nemitz.
Signed Alex. Yeah. Had they re-signed Alex Tanguay, that would have been a great trade.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just the way everything fell apart. But if on paper, like I remember I was in Italy during that trade, and I thought, damn, Gainey, that one, okay. And then I think Robert Lang was also acquired shortly after, and just like, okay,
round
like,
pick,
I see where you're going.
Yeah.
Grabowski.
Is that what it ended up being?
Yeah,
okay.
It was the Grabowski trade. Yeah, so,
you know what? Robert Lang was great until I think his ligament
injured.
got torn. Or
yeah, exactly. He was like the top center. It was great, but it just goes to show you, like, you get to a point where you can make those kinds of moves. And I feel like the Canadiens in 2008, because they had that strong season, felt okay. Here we are. Let's add, because Price was coming in, looked really good. Kovalev hit above point per game. First time since like the late 90s.
Only time in Price's career that he had a guy.
I know. I know.
Pour one out for.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go downstairs and get the hard stuff.
Oh my god. Okay, well, but you talk about this getting stockpiling. Hey man, Los Angeles didn't have the best drafts, right? We're talking about Byfield is coming into his own, and that's probably a pretty good. And Clark was okay.
Alex Turcotte.
Is he going to be any? Like, I remember he went before Caulfield, right? He went like top 5, didn't he?
5.
Rasmus Kupari, I believe, the year before that.
20. That was the pick that the Kings wanted to send to Montreal for Max Pacioretty.
Oh, you know what? So, like Marc Bergevin fell ass backwards into a great trade there, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And Gabe
Because Jake
Vilardi
Muzzin and a first round pick would not have done it.
was a
Jake
pretty.
Vilardi,
But he's the kind of guy
I
you
don't
can
think
go
it's a
get on the trade
scouting.
market, right? Like,
I don't think it's a scouting error. I don't think it's a scouting error.
No.
I think that is just dumb luck.
Yeah, I mean,
That's just health.
He's a guy, yeah, and he's a guy who you know almost went top 10. There really is a huge drop off in terms of what you can expect at that point, right? Like that's it. Trizek mentions, wasn't Lang injured in the cursed barber shop pole jersey game? I don't know if it was that exact game, but I do remember him.
I think so.
When I picture Lang, and you know what? I have that jersey somewhere. I like ugly jerseys. Like, I have the Team Canada 1927 Winnipeg Falcons, like mustard. Even mustard would be like, that's ugly. Yeah, I know, but I love those type of jerseys. And the barber pole looks good in person. Mais maudit que c'est laid on the ice. It just, like, that's the one time I'll give, what's his name there, the weirdo that calls games for Boston.
Mark Edwards?
Yes. No, Mark Edwards is scouting for
Jack Edwards.
Yeah, Jack Edwards.
Yeah, sorry, Jim. Sorry, Mark. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
Jack
my
Edwards.
bad. We respect you, Mark. That was the time where he's like, geez, they look like they're from an incarceration unit. And yeah, it was... It was not breaking. That's what I remember Lang in when I picture him is in that jersey. But he got traded for a second round pick. Tanguay was that first, and you bring a good point. When the time is ready to go, that's when you make your move, and that's which brings us to. Oh yeah, and other things happened tonight. But let's be honest, Slafkovsky was okay. That's about it offensively. How are you feeling with Caulfield and Slafkovsky on that second line?
I like seeing talent with talent. It's a novelty, right? It's crazy. But
go figure.
Right. It just, to me, there is a very strong dichotomy with how this forward lineup is built. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of plugs, and then there is talented youth that you're trying to develop. Some of this talented youth is being put in a position to succeed. Some of this
is Yolonen, yeah. The rest are Yolonen.
Yeah. Yolonen has been is a case study in and of itself. But the way in which Juraj Slafkovsky is used up until last week was confusing. Now you're starting to see, okay, he's starting to get his rhythm. He's starting to find players. He's starting to move. And I understand a lot of people are going to be like, you expect that from a first overall pick.
We have to forget that he's first overall. Let's just keep that out of our heads, right? It doesn't matter anymore.
But I agree. I agree with them. You would expect that. But,
I do too.
But the thing is that when you bring in a player like that, and like, I don't put this on him, but Martin St. Louis has been playing both sides of the medal, unfortunately, this season. And there are games where I see him desperately trying to win the game at all costs, and that comes at the cost of development in my mind.
Yeah.
You don't have to put Caulfield and Suzuki out, for example, literally every second shift in overtime, when you never used to do that before, right? In 2022, when he came on, Jordan Harris played an OT in his first game.
Right off it was Harris and like
off the bat.
It was like, I remember the average age was under 21 there. Yeah, exactly. That was exciting for the Habs.
And not a problem.
Nope.
The Canadiens acquired Justin Barron, and he was in overtime the first chance he got. But Juraj Slafkovsky, the first overall pick in one of what is probably the best chance to show any form of skill on the planet, the most open amount of ice, and you have this behemoth who can skate and shoot and pass, and you're not going to try him, even though he's showing good things. And I feel like when we finally saw him in overtime yesterday, it was like, okay, here we are.
Yeah.
It's about time. But the fact that we are thinking that as this team is supposed to rebuild really makes you kind of wonder, like, is there a disconnect?
There has to be. Marco, I get the sense that a lot of the decisions that are being made for the lineup are coming from up top. Okay, last year with Dadonov, keeping him in the top 6, and all the other, guys like Hoffman or whatnot. This year, and even Farrell at the end of the year, you can see Martin St. Louis did not want him in the lineup. And it's not a matter of him hating the kid. It's just, I understand they wanted to burn a year in his contract. They were doing the Charlie Lindgren thing. But when Martin St. Louis, they asked him, like, why is he in your lineup? And he said, you're going to have to ask Kent Hughes. I mean, that's a pretty good indication that he's not perfectly aligned with what Ken Hughes is doing. And I get it, because Ken Hughes is building for the future. And like you said, Martin St. Louis has to play that development / I don't want to get fired
Right.
game,
Well,
right?
with Farrell, I remember that comment, and I remember mentioning it like, okay, there, Marty, but like they had no choice. The CBA literally says that if he signs and burns the first year of his ELC, he has to play in the
In the
NHL. So
NHL,
like,
yeah,
are you really going to sit a guy when you're already bottom five? Are
yeah.
you really going to sit a
Yeah,
guy?
I
Like,
know. But from a
no,
coaching
come
perspective,
now.
I get it. And also, I'll say this, and it's funny because usually I'm the one that's critical about Martin St. Louis, but I get why he was always benching Slafkovsky, right? For, let's be perfectly honest, until about 2 weeks ago, I don't think I would have trusted Slafkovsky either if I wanted to win. Now, but if I'm in a position where I have no choice, then obviously things change. And you're right. That's such a great situation for him to actually have open ice and a few extra seconds. But I get where Martin St. Louis is coming from with his hesitancy to go all in on the development. But you're right. There has to be some sort of conversation with him and the GM and be like, hey, like, what are we doing here? But at his heart, Martin St. Louis is a competitor. We all know this. He's going to, like tonight, I bet you he reamed them out harder than he has ever before.
Sure. I get that. But like, for example, you look at the Chicago Blackhawks and the way Luke Richardson is handling that young team. Lucas Reichel is not having the most breakout rookie season you could possibly imagine. Doesn't mean they're not trying him out with Connor Bedard on the top line every so often.
Well,
right?
Who else is there left? Like,
well, I mean, yeah. Now I'm just saying, like,
yeah, no.
Before everybody got injured or left the team,
or just mysteriously disappeared. Yeah.
Like there was a time where there were options.
There was Athanasiou. There's even, I think Taylor Radish started on the top line this year. Anyway,
yeah, Taylor Radish was playing on the top line too. Like Athanasiou was getting shots there. Like it's just, you give them the opportunity. Heck, Andre Tourigny did not have Logan Cooley on the top line until earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're trying to get him going because he's got 1 point, I think, in his last 5 or 6 games.
Is it? Yeah, because I saw people getting critical about him, but I thought he still had a pretty good output overall in this season.
No, he had a very strong first 10 games. And again, like, it's not like he's overly hurting the team.
Okay,
I think
yeah.
the team
2 goals, 10 assists in 19 games, and if he hasn't scored in 5,
yeah, like, it's an excellent
with the young guy.
Rookie
season. The young guy, you start going 5 games without a point, and then when's the last time Logan Cooley went 5 games without a point? Has he ever in his life?
Well, in the NHL, no.
No, but like just in his life.
In his life. Oh,
I doubt it. I honestly doubt it.
Not since I've been following him, no.
So you're right. You have to try to get him going. Yeah, no choice with that.
So I get that, but at the same time, like, is Arizona really trying to like be competitive here? They're right there in the playoff race. So like,
yeah,
what are we doing?
Right? So you can balance both, is what you're saying. Yeah, there needs to be there. Yeah, go ahead.
But you can, but it depends. It really, really depends. Like, this is where I get confused. Like, you can look at San Jose. San Jose is a terrible team. Terrible.
Oh my God.
And
that lineup. Did you look at the lineup? Did you take a minute to actually I had to Google the defense. I'm like, no fucking way, this is a real guy. Like, this is a name of a guy that was generated by like a Sony hockey game that doesn't have the rights. Like,
no, it's the EA GM mode.
Yeah.
Just come up with in the draft.
Philip McGillney, it was.
It's just they have that, yet Thomas Bordelot is playing with the Barracuda and could easily be in the NHL right now, right? So like, they see, like, you see how the difference is. Like, they could just throw him to the Wolves right now, like they're doing with William Eklund. But Eklund was ready, has been playing with pros longer, understands the game. Bordelot could play on that team. I think you could see very, very easily. But is it really going to be beneficial for him? Do they necessarily want to rush that? These are the questions. So, like, for example, when we talk about Montreal, we're talking about Slafkovsky in the NHL.
Yeah.
Joshua Roy could very well be in the NHL right now.
He'd make the Habs better immediately. He would make them a better team instantly. Yes.
But as we speak, he's going through a pretty deep cold streak.
This is 5 games with 1 point, I think, that he's hit right now, or is he?
I think he's gone. I think he has 1 goal in his last 12 games,
which for Roy is very bad. But again, totally normal. And 2 weeks ago, I think I was one of the only guys I was saying Roy needs to stay in the AHL, and the tomate there, that it was like the tomatina there. I was just getting massacred online. Like, why do you hate Joshua Roy? Well, we're seeing it now, right? Development takes a long time.
You must always be weary of hot starts. Always.
Always. Yeah.
Always, because you want to see what a prospect is like. Go look at him in January.
Yeah,
Go look at
mid-February
him
and
in
that
February.
shitty,
The
yeah.
dog days of hockey, that's when you know. Like, I want to see Uri Slafkovsky in January because last year his issue was conditioning. That's what he worked on this summer.
Yeah.
The worst thing that could have happened to Yuri Slafkovsky's development, in my opinion, is not starting the season in Montreal. It was getting injured before everybody else got injured last season, and he didn't get those opportunities that Alex Belzil and Raphael Harvey-Pinard were getting. That is the biggest travesty, in my opinion,
You're right.
the biggest bad luck moment that you could get. Because right now, he would probably
True.
be a much better player. Nothing against him. He could probably still get to that point, but man, that would have been great development time because there were no expectations.
Yeah. No,
Same
absolutely.
applies to guys like Farrell right now. The only player I would think in the entire organization that needed a call up pronto got his call up, and that's Jaden Struble.
Who again tonight
And
did not look out of place. And I think that's all we're really
no,
looking for with Jaden Struble at this point. Right now, there's some people right away, and I love Montreal for this. Oh, by the way, we're going to get to the chat. Trinka and Leon and Ted and Trizak are coming up with good questions. But did you see people immediately trading away, like faster than I do in these chats, trading away Arbor Jacki, like 3 shifts into Struble's career?
look, do I think it's a fantastic problem to have? Absolutely. Do I think that a left-handed shot defenseman is going to be traded this between now and this offseason? Look, I don't want to give the cat out of the bag, but I can confirm it.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that there are scouts currently watching the Canadiens defensemen, both in Laval and Montreal.
Oh.
Do I think?
Are they still
Do
all in
I think
Laval?
it's Jacki?
Hold on? Are they still all in Laval watching, or have they moved to
No,
Montreal?
no. This was last week.
Oh,
This was
okay.
last week and the week before.
Okay.
So the game where Montreal was playing Calgary, and then they played Belleville the night before, and then they played, I believe, the Golden Knights the game after.
Mm-hmm.
That
Okay.
week,
Yeah.
there were 10 pro scouts in Laval watching their defense, and this was before Jaden Struble got called up.
Oh,
So
interesting.
there are eyes on the Canadiens defense.
So it wasn't
Do I
just
think
all
they're going to
goalies, right? Because I know the Oilers were there in full force during that stretch too, right?
the Habs games, yes, but you can tell the pro scouts that went to both the Habs games and then the Rocket games, because I attended both games back to back to the chagrin of my wife. But when I went to both games, I recognized the same scouts, and so
Yeah.
at that point you start asking yourself the question, what are you doing here? And you can Laval is not a very big arena. You can overhear the conversations. They're right next to you, and
Yeah.
they're looking at specific guys and calling out specific guys, and they're like, okay, well, who do we rate higher here? And you hear the names Jacki, Harris, Struble. So in my opinion, especially with Elaine Hudson coming, especially with Adam Egenstrom also possibly being part of the discussion, there is a serious need in the next year to move out at least one of these guys. So do they necessarily need to trade Arbor Jacki right this second? No.
But
Do they deal from a position of strength when the time comes? Absolutely. So if Jaden Struble shows he can handle himself in the NHL, has the AHL ability to go down without waivers, you're winning. Take it easy. And
yeah.
then when the summer comes and you need to make a bigger trade for the offensive players the Canadians that certain fans think the Canadians will never be able to obtain, there's one of your major trade chips.
Absolutely. And a guy like Struble and Jacki, I think regardless of their actual like on ice results, will always hold a little bit more value in the eyes of GM. Kind of like the
Oh yeah.
I don't want to mention his name because I always get accused of hating him, but kind of like that guy who hasn't scored this year. They're always an elevated.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't. I've been told that I hate him. I think right now the puck just hates him, you know. But no, I don't hate him. But we do know that certain guys have an elevated perception around the league, and guys like Struble and Jacki will always have a higher perceived value than their actual value. I think that's the reality.
Let's all be clear. 2 years ago, I don't think many people would have thought he would be playing NHL games, right? And here he is playing NHL games, looking smooth.
Not out of place,
looking
not at all.
Very smooth.
Yeah.
Not at all. Very smooth, very relaxed. Arbor Jacki looked very smooth and very relaxed in his first couple of games last year. It's what you call adrenaline, ladies and gentlemen. young players get that. Heck, I get that when I go to work. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just the first couple of days, you go over and above to try and impress and prove that they made the right decision in calling you up. It is a normal thing. Come talk to me at game 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's when you kind of get to see. So Justin Barron, same concept. That was the same thing when he first got traded to Montreal. Jordan Harris, when he first got traded,
He's having a
when he
harder
first got
year
signed by
this year.
Montreal, same,
Let's
yeah,
be
starting
honest.
a harder year.
Yep.
Very, very normal.
Yep.
The only player, in my opinion, who hasn't suffered any of these consequences is Caden Guhle, and there is a reason for that. He is a bona fide. He's a bona fide defensive. Like, he's a bona fide.
He's just better in general.
Let's not put a label on it, but he's a bona fide top of the lineup defenseman.
I like that, the top of, not because I started mentioning that he's getting close to other guys, and you can't mention Jake Sanderson without Sens fans losing their goddamn mind. But Caden Guhle, and I'd say he's probably in his toughest stretch right now. But the Habs are in.
Yeah, but
it's just
context is so important.
Exactly. So, but yeah, Caden Goule's the one guy I identify. This is gonna be a hot take. I say Caden Guhle has a better shot at being a long-term top pairing guy than Lane Hudson. And it's not because I doubt Lane Hudson, but I think Guhle can kind of go on a top pairing regardless of who's there eventually. Whereas Lane Hudson, you need a specific guy. And I think it's going to take Lane Hudson a little longer to jump into the NHL and be dominant. Like, I get it. I'm like the captain of the hype train. I'm always like Lane Hudson, but he's not a perfect player. Do you see him jumping immediately into the lineup next year? Or is there some Laval Rocket time?
Yeah. I mean, my answer to that is always let him finish the season in the NCAA. He's obviously going to sign his entry-level contract and join the Canadiens to end the season. Like that, it's in late March or early April, depending on how they do with the Frozen Four. He'll be there. He'll have 4 or 5 games. We'll see what he can do, and then at that point, we see at camp. My opinion, though, and I don't necessarily disagree. I think Lane Hudson's too smart to fail, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think worst case, if Caden Goule's the top pair D and he's the second pair D, then you're in a good place, right? Like if Caden Guhle is good enough to be above him on the echelon, then something went right with Caden Goule's development, and I think everybody would be okay with that, especially Trisiak, pointing out that the Canadiens have been outshot 18 to 21 times. Well, you want players that are going to be pushing the puck up the other way and not get shot at. So that's probably going to be one of the major things they're going to look at is mobility from the back end and getting the puck out.
Yeah, puck retrieval is big.
A lot of those, puck retrieval, successful puck zone exits as well, because that's the Canadiens, my opinion, their biggest backdrop is zone exits.
Oh God.
If you can fix those things on defense, you're going to shoot a lot more pucks towards the other net. Not one shot in the first period that was a fluke, like stuff like that. So when you look at a guy like Hudson, that's fine, and I'm all good with that. Then you look at the right side, right, and you start seeing Barron. For all intents and purposes, Barron has played far better than I feel like 75% of the fan base gave him credit for.
Like he's making big mistakes, I'd say, but he's also like his mistakes are more apparent because he's playing higher up in the lineup and he's playing bigger minutes, right? But overall, he's more consistent this year than last year, actually. So
than ever.
Yeah. And then you have Engstrom, and then you have Engstrom's on the right, why am I drawing a blank? He's on the left. But you still have Mailloux, who's
Reinbacher and
Mailloux right now. Look, for all his defensive woes, this guy I think he's 10th in the AHL for shots, like total. Like this guy is a shot machine there. He's second among all defensemen, and he's in top 10. Right, like he's gonna take 2 times more shots than Sean Farrell this year. You know what I mean? So like that's still a guy that will help their power play, and if you can ever get over those defensive issues, there's value there. Like I still think for all his deficiencies, Mailloux's a pretty good safe bet for the top 4.
Yeah, I mean, look, right now he's trending for just a little over half a point per game as an offensive defenseman as a rookie in the AHL.
That's great.
If you would have sold me that at the beginning of the season, I would have said that's a pretty successful season.
I'm
for surprised
a guy who's played, producing this much.
100? Yeah, but like 100 OHL games in 4 years.
Which is nothing.
And he's a half point per game in the AHL. And for all folks that are saying like, oh, he's terrible defensively, the Canadiens called up probably the most inconsistent defenseman in Laval, which was Matthias Norlinder, in fact.
Oh, I thought you were about to say
Those are my
Struble. I was like, no. He's the
No,
only one that's been reliable. Yeah.
Struble is consistency.
Norlinder's
He
had
is
a
Mr.
tough time since he got sent down.
Yeah, it was very difficult. But
And Trudeau.
I think, I mean, he's played a lot better recently.
Yeah,
Because I
but
think he got
like
the message.
it's funny because this year I was hyping. Well, last year I hyped Kovacevic and Matheson, and then going into this year I'm like Norlinder's looking good and Trudeau's looking good, and I'd say they're the 4 defensemen that have had the hardest time versus their expectations. Maybe I should just shut the hell up. And like 3 weeks ago, I come out on Twitter. I'm like, guys, that's it. I'm sick of all these jokes with the power play. The Habs have a good power play now. Fuck, man.
Like, and you see, like, that's why, like, at one point the Canadiens power play was at like 22%, and a lot of people were like, oh, it's fixed. They're scoring in unsustainable ways. Like, you look at other teams' power plays, they're moving the puck, they are moving themselves. If you look at the Kings power plays today, like, they're not static. They're not static. They don't need to leave one guy in one spot. They need to move.
One thing we saw really cool yesterday was Struble. He actually created, it wasn't pre-shot movement, but he froze, I forget,
the D.
Blackwood.
He broke his ankle. Yeah.
My God, that was the nicest sell, and it gave Kovacevic enough time. And again, Blackwood had to reset, right? That was the big thing, which was great to see. We never see that.
It's exactly what they need to do more often, is because it's too predictable a game, and that obviously comes with a lack of hockey sense, a lack of overall talent. But and I'll continue to say this as we talk about what's wrong with this team. There's too much in the middle, holding back the top and holding back what should be at the top.
I agree.
And we're not going to talk about Josh Anderson. I get it. I think enough ink has been spoken.
He wasn't the worst player today. He was not the worst player today, so I'll give him that.
But look,
as we tied for the worst player.
Good Lord. As we talk about players that get written off because of slow starts or here or there, like one player that we don't talk enough about that had a really good career in the QMJHL is Riley Kidney.
Yeah,
Riley Kidney's been riding the pine in Laval,
and he got his chance now, though.
And 2 goals in 2 games now. He just scored.
Oh, did he score again tonight? Okay, because I know yesterday that's obviously due to the call-ups and the injuries, but he's the guy. I'll be honest, Marco. And we're gonna get to the chat. We're gonna get to the questions. We're gonna start that third segment soon, and we'll also talk about trades. But if Riley Kidney can get a pro career out of this, I will be. First of all, I'll be wrong because I looked at him in the queue and I was like, geez, this is not a guy that his skill can translate. And I kind of feel the same way about Cédric Guindon now. Guindon has a bigger frame. I think he's probably sees the ice a little bit better. He's a little more intense. But it pretty much proves the point that until you get that opportunity, you can't be judging guys, right? And that's what Riley Kidney is. I mean, the guy he had what, 100 and how many points did he end up getting last year?
Oh, he was well over 100.
Second,
he was at 105
scoring or something, or I don't know.
But no, point per game.
And he's one of the only guys that really showed up when they played Quebec, right? So that or was it? Did they play Halifax? Jeez, I'm already forgetting the playoffs last year. No,
pretty sure they played Halifax.
Gatineau played Halifax, or they played the Rempart? I think Gatineau played the Rempart. Did they not?
Rempart.
I forget. Either way, Rempart. Oh, okay. So he was one of the few guys that showed up, and hey, it's good to show that. When you get that opportunity, you're going to go. But I also feel like people are starting to criticize Guhle for not liking talent because the way he used Mishak and Kidney. I'm not sure I agree with that. And we'll talk about real briefly. In about 30 seconds, what's your call on JF Guhle? In 30 seconds, tell me everything I need to know about this coach.
Yeah, I think JF Guhle is in the same situation as Martin St. Louis. But if you look at what's in front of him right now, if you look at the lineup in Laval, this is a year where they had a ton of rookies.
Yeah.
And he's playing most of them in prime situations.
Mm-hmm.
You have your veterans, but where are they playing right now?
Juan Farrell basically on the top line with Gignac.
Yeah, but they're playing mostly third line, fourth line?
Mm-hmm.
Laval, defensively, Toby Paquette-Bisson is playing on the second pair, and then everybody else was a rookie or a sophomore. You can't, you have 2 basically rookie goalies in net. You cannot have a more inexperienced lineup than the 2023-2024 Laval Rocket, and he is still sticking by them. He's not benching anybody.
No.
They just roll them back out, keep trying. In some games, they look great. In some games, they don't. And it's his job to bring that consistency. But, I can't evaluate his work 10 games into the season or 15 games into the season, because last year they were an absolute mess up until November, and then they took off and ended up coming back from last until making the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's because certain young players developed.
Heineman too came in and just dominated.
Justin Barron.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like right now we're seeing the same thing. Joshua Roy looks good. Sean Farrell looks good, but you're hoping that other guys take that bump, and we saw it with Jaden Struble. Took that bump, looked very consistent. Now we're going to see what Logan Mailloux can do with extra minutes. And, you know, the season, she is young, but the Swiss League season ends in the end of February.
Is that with the playout? Because I was actually talking to Thibault yesterday, and he's like, yeah, Reinbacher is going to stay there for the whole playout afterwards, and Cloten's going to be in that playout. So I was hoping he was going to come before the playout.
But the playout is a 7-game series.
Okay, so it doesn't, because I'm not too familiar with the playout, but I know it involves several teams.
It's a 7-game series.
Okay.
That leads to an eventual relegation series, and it's just like, basically the sweet spot is that they don't finish in the final 2 spots.
Yeah, I'm gonna go check the NL standings right now, because I know they lost to Davos, but
they won yesterday.
Yeah. Which was the you know, and for those who are worried about Reinbacher, you can go yesterday and watch. I'm gonna say it the way it's. I'm gonna be that guy that's like announcing like I'm gonna have some lasagna, you know, like the jackass that every server hates. Yeah, yeah. Cloten's still right there, but if one more win and they're out of the playout, so that's okay. For those that want to know more about Reinbacher, you can load up our episode yesterday. Fantastic information from Thibault Châtel. He really calmed my nerves, because when I'm watching Reinbacher, he's looked bad, I'll be perfectly honest, but Thibault tracks the data, and his numbers are up this year. So that's like, I'm watching him post-injury. The clips I've seen have been bad, but that's really taking like a 10 data piece out of 1,000. So if anyone that's worried, go check out our show with Thibault yesterday. Okay, before we trade every single goalie, Ted wants to know, is Martin Saint-Louis' lack of coaching experience really starting to show? And I'll give you my piece on it real quick. I think he's a fantastic motivator. I don't think he's very good when it comes to X's and O's.
Mm-hmm. I think
it's tough to say, right? Because we're not there either. Like, that's the other part. And the talent in the lineup is there, but I just don't see Martin Saint-Louis. Like, you know, when everyone said, he doesn't have strategies, he has like, or what was his little speech there? He has like, instead of systems there, he has
concepts.
That to me was the biggest load of crap I had heard. And everyone's like, yeah, Martin Saint-Louis. And I'm like, oh my God, what does that mean? He was mentioning when he's on the ice, because he was one of the best players of all time. But it's kind of like when Wayne Gretzky tried to coach guys, or Thierry Henry tried to coach the Montreal Impact. Talent doesn't always translate, right?
Yeah, I think what was refreshing was the idea that it wasn't just a box idea that is set in stone, that doesn't evolve.
You're not just like a 4-man collapsing or a diamond or anything. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. It wasn't necessarily just based on a tried and true formation. And I think that was key. But at the same time, you know, we've seen it a lot in certain aspects of the media, but cool, you want to bring in these concepts. Has this team improved?
No, they haven't.
No, they haven't. Now,
I mean, I don't know what your answer is going to be there, Marco, but statistically speaking, they have not.
No, they haven't. But what do they need to do to improve? And so, in my opinion, the same problem that held them back as their season was going down before the injuries, but might I add, as the season was going down, is the same problem they have now. Is that you have guys that are underperforming that could be replaced by, let's call it what it is, replacement level at worst NHL prospects that have the potential to even develop further and push them in the right direction. You look at, for example, the Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres are not where they need to be right now. They have injuries galore. But what the Buffalo Sabres do have is the ability to call up guys that can get them in the right momentum.
So just got Guhle, right?
Isaac Roshan.
Yeah.
both called up today. Now they're currently playing. I don't think they're winning, but it's part of the process. It's part of the process. So
Yeah, so
to
it's a
me, I
talent
think
thing too. Let's be
it's
perfectly
a
honest.
talent thing. And I think obviously there's going to be the what's the word I have to say here? The ritual that is dunking on the fact that Canadians did not pick Matvei Michkov, which I get, but that doesn't solve today.
I
We would
agree
have
with
had
you
this
so
conversation
much.
in
Yeah.
3 years,
Oh my god.
right?
And like
But it doesn't.
yeah.
Today is still a problem, right?
No,
So
I
if you look
absolutely
at
agree.
today and you look at what this team needs, obviously they need a Kirby dog. I think that's fair. I think the team's weakness at center is striking.
Yeah, in transition
And I know a lot
especially.
of
Yeah.
people, well, I mean, I think if there's anything the Canadians need to target between now and forever, it's drafting centers with the first round picks because I think they've done more than enough of drafting defensemen over the last 8 years. I think they've drafted 5 in the first round at this point. Um, it's going back to Sergachev. I think
Sergachev. Yeah, okay, that was the
Sergachev,
one that I was missing. I'm like, who's that?
yes,
Yeah,
because like
Sergachev.
it's insane. Like you're picking high, pick forwards, pick guys, pick what your team has lacked for a long time. And I understand the frustrations from fans. I really
Yeah.
do. But I also don't think they're done tanking either.
No,
And I
me
think,
neither. Yeah, and that's the reality check we
look
need
at
to have right now is that the Montreal Canadiens, for better, for worse, for better, are probably headed towards the top 5 in a draft where you have guys like Dickinson, Demidov, Macklin, Celebrini. Fuck, man.
well, Celebrini.
I'm gonna say, like, right now to me, and Matt, this is gonna maybe, fuck it. I see a guy who has a higher skill set than Connor Bedard, but he's not even close to like the right, like all around player. But in terms of his pure offensive skill, and I know this sounds crazy, maybe I'm just falling in love with him because he's playing with Lane Hudson. But at 17 years old, he's about to destroy all the records in the NCAA. He's going to score 18 goals before Christmas. Macklin Celebrini is the type of talent that would send the Canadians or would allow them to start to look forward.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I think Macklin Celebrini, with all things considered, would probably have gone second overall in 2023. I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think to me, he's a more dynamic player than Adam Fantilli.
More
And
raw
I think
talent.
he's more, yeah. And I think overall he impacts the games in more ways so far
Mm-hmm.
than Leo Carlson. Although Leo Carlson has developed quite nicely,
He's looking. He's
but
looking very.
he's looking really good.
Yeah.
But like, if you start going down the list from last year, I think that Macklin Celebrini is a better prospect today than Will Smith is today, for example. So and
Even
Will
Ryan
Smith went
Leonard or
fourth
yeah.
overall, or Ryan Leonard, or you name it, any of the forwards.
Yeah.
I think Macklin Celebrini is a better player than Matvei Michkov.
And he's over a year younger. Like we're talking about a guy who's turning 18 in June.
Yeah,
And he's leading, for
I
those
think
that don't know, he's leading the NCAA in scoring by a huge margin at 17 years old. When I was 17, I was waiting in line for a really bad Star Wars movie. I think we had skipped, like we were in OAC in high school. And I had to drive my car to make up point to hang out with my girlfriend. This guy is leading the NCAA in scoring at 17 years old.
yeah.
And he's going to end his season 17 years old. Like he can jump into the NHL next year, I believe, honestly.
Exactly, and I honestly don't. I mean, I don't care who drafts him. I think he's in the NHL next year. But you look at, you even go down the line, right? Like a lot of the negativity around drafting right now is the fact that people think that this is only a defenseman's draft. No, it isn't. You have Macklin Celebrini, but then right after that, Cole Eiserman is going to break
He's
Cole
the one that I
Caulfield's
was forgetting
record.
about. Yeah,
And
Eiserman. He's not even playing in Boston
4 to
University
5.
yet.
No, not yet. He's in the U.S. national development team, but he's 4 to 5 inches taller than Cole Caulfield. Like, we're not talking about the same type of player here. This is going to be a 50-goal scorer, probably for well, I wouldn't say generational scorer, but I think he's going to be one of those guys that you just cannot miss. Sorry, cannot miss on a lineup where he's going to be in the running for the Maurice Richard trophy on a regular basis. Ivan Demidov, who many believe
he's
is
going to be better than Michkov, I think.
Well, I think we'll have to see about that, but I think he's in the same conversation.
Yeah.
I haven't seen enough of Demidov. I'm not going to be a hypocrite here. I haven't seen enough.
Yeah, I've seen like 3 games.
What I've seen,
but
I like what I've seen.
Yeah.
But it's the lack of that to me is the biggest issue with looking at Russian prospects.
The lack of knowledge.
Other than Silayev, who plays consistent minutes in the KHL. But you move away from those top three. Berkeley Catton and Caden Lindstrom in the WHL, both
Okay.
at a point and a half per game right now.
And they're what, 6 to 10?
I would say they're pushing 4 to 8 at this rate.
Okay, so there's some talent to be found outside of that big top five then.
And then there's also Consta Helenius, who's ripping up
There you go.
the Finnish
So,
Liga right
there's
now.
gonna be talent available for the Habs, and being bad this year is a good thing. Let's be perfectly honest.
But the thing to keep in mind, Mark, is I just named the forwards.
Yeah.
I didn't talk to you about Artem Levshunov playing in the NCAA almost at a point per game.
Can't use will hear you.
No,
we don't.
I think at this point, and you quote me on this and come back to me in late June. But I think at this point, if the Canadiens look at this draft, and pick a defenseman, depending on where they are, now we have questions to ask. Unless one of their big defensemen is traded for a top forward.
Yeah, which is
other than
always
that,
a possibility.
Very questionable because you can get a top forward right now.
Yeah, but your point there is really strong too, though. That I mean, don't forget, everyone's gonna, and we're gonna get to the questions right now. But the defenseman will go regardless, right? Even if you think a guy's 12, he's gonna go maybe 5, and not trying to say anyone specific.
If you want a perfect example, and we'll get to the questions right after this, but a perfect example is the 2022 draft.
Mm-hmm.
2022 draft, the only defenseman anybody wanted to talk about was Nemitz, Jiricek.
Yeah.
And then there was another group after that everybody placed in the teens, right?
There's a certain Russian that you love.
Kevin Korshinsky went 7th. Whoop, Pavel Mintyukov went 10th. Whoop, Denton Mateychuk went 12th. And no one's
that run
on
defenseman goes.
And you're going to see a run on defenseman, in my opinion, at the top of this draft because there were so few of them last year.
So you can so that forward talent.
Look at San Jose, Chicago. These are all teams that desperately need defense because they've only been drafting forwards.
Well, I mean, I hope with all my heart and all my soul that Chicago somehow falls out of the top 10. I know it's not possible, but that's what I'm hoping for.
Not with the news we got this week.
Trinka, shout out to the old people. OEC, for those that don't know, OEC was essentially 13th grade in Ontario, and they counted for your university. It was a party year. It was straight up a party year. We would camp in the back, and my favorite thing in OAC was letting chickens loose, because we drive by a chicken farm and I was the only guy that wasn't afraid of chickens because I grew up on a farm, and I just grabbed 2 chickens and we'd be in a van, my buddy's Serge Charlebois shaggin' wagon, we called it. And then we'd get into the auditoriums and just let chickens go. And they threatened to suspend us. And we're like, fine, we'll come back next year. And then they're like, no, don't come back next year. Okay, so Leon wants to know, is it time to put Slafkovsky on that top line with Caulfield and Suzuki? So bring him back.
I think that the fear in putting Slafkovsky on the top line is that he will have to face the best defensive players of the opposing team. Having him on the second line is a sweet spot, in my opinion, because it allows him to not have to face the best shutdown personnel of the opposing team, therefore giving him a little bit more space.
Yeah.
The problem is he's playing with Caulfield. Caulfield is the guy that everyone's looking at.
Yeah.
Exactly. So he's getting it now anyway. So if you're looking at just going for it, then go for it. In my opinion, I would have had Slafkovsky on that top line and stuck him there far longer than a game and a half, especially with the way he's been playing lately.
I forgot that he actually played on the top line for a little bit there, like I mentioned in the chat and someone's like St. Louis. I was like, oh yeah, St. Louis, or St. Louis.
I thought it was, and I thought there was, I initially thought it was St. Louis too. I thought it was good. I thought he was good in that game, and I think he's been playing better now. And I would argue that Suzuki has not been playing better. In fact, the only beneficiary right now to that top line, in my opinion, has been Alex Newhook.
Yeah.
So my call wouldn't even be Caulfield with Suzuki on that top line. My call would be Slafkovsky, Suzuki, Newhook.
Or I actually just like listen. They were playing really well together right before they got broken up, but at one point you're gonna have to learn to live without each other. Suzuki and Caulfield. So they worked well together because they were 2 of the only half decent players for a while. Let's be perfectly honest. Yeah. But in an ideal lineup, it's about balance and talent. The Habs don't have enough to really stack it, right? That's the
it's like Tampa. Tampa used to have Braden Point and Steven Stamkos running shotgun with each other.
But Stamkos was on the third line.
On the second line.
Is he? Oh, is he? Okay.
Now Now he's a winger on the second line. We're talking about the first
now.
overall pick who was picked to be a center. Yeah, but he's been playing wing for the last 3 years.
Jeez,
Why?
Yeah.
Because you have Cirelli as the shutdown second line center, and you have Braden Point who's the unquestioned number one. And then Point and Kucherov are the dynamo.
Yeah.
Right? So now you have to build chemistry with somebody else. So they're working with Cirelli, and that combo's worked really well. So I think that's what they need to do. And we've talked about this. The Caulfield-Doc combination has to happen at one point or another. But you desperately need to find who's going to play on that top line if you choose to go with that combination on your second. Yeah. And I think you need to start experimenting at this point in the season because, yes, the Canadiens may be a point or two out of the playoffs, but there's games in hand that they have over the opponents and the strength of their schedule. Not necessarily who they play, but how many times they play is going to catch up. Because at this point in time, if you look at December, 3 back-to-back games, 7 games against playoff teams out of 10. It's okay to beat teams like San Jose. They may even win against Columbus after showing that they had today. They may get fired up and win that game against Columbus.
Yeah.
But I don't see the consistency coming. So if that's the case, especially if you're going against a team like Columbus, experiment, try it.
Yeah, give it a go.
See what works. Because right now they just seem to be trying the same things. Mm-hmm. My biggest critique, and I'll say it again, is the fact that Sean Monahan is relegated to the bottom 6 for some reason. Sean Monahan should be in your top 6.
He's that guy that just gets the worst, he's like the Canadians from World War I there, like you go to Passchendaele, you go to Somme, you go to Verdun, like really just getting thrown to the wolves there to take care of his great line mates who I'm not going to mention. Okay, we're going to take 2 more questions. Sorry, when me and Marco get into it, we do this on the phone for hours, so we do talk a lot. But we do appreciate all of you being here. And if you can, subscribe. And if you can, click like. And if you can't, that's fine too, man. I just hate you forever. Leon, we're going to get to Leon. And then Jean, if you have any other questions, throw them in the chat. We're hitting about an hour, and I know Marco's got to go. Your better half is probably going to be, there you go. Then if you're okay, I'm okay. Leon wants to know, and this is a good one. Who do you have for how do you do the top 4 in 2 years, your defenseman? And people have asked this a lot when I do the mailbag. I think it's gonna be a lot different than people assume. And it might, when you look at 3 years down the road, for every decor, it's about half turnover, half of it. So who do you think is going to be their top 4 out of the 20 defensemen?
It's a tough sell.
Because you're looking at okay, so Harris, Jacky, Struble, Engstrom, Hudson, Reinbacher, Mailloux, Trudeau, if he ever finds his game. There's a lot of options. That's the thing, right? And you have Caden Guhle who's there right now. So, yeah. I
think we know, or we have a very good idea who 3 of them will be in Reinbacher, Hudson, and Guhle.
Yeah.
And then it's a question of who rounds that up. Is it going to be a Mailloux? Is it going to be a Barron?
Is it going to be a Mike Matheson type guy, which would make more sense? Like a high end or okay. I like that. That's a good that's a pretty good base for your top 4.
That's it. I think what's going to make or break the Canadiens, to be completely honest, is who's going to be on your third pair. And I know your people are going to be like, well, why does that even matter? Because what happens if one of them gets injured?
Yeah, and you're paying your top 4 a lot of money. You're paying your bottom pairing not a lot of money, so they got to be good and cheap, and that's hard to find in the NHL. It really is. Okay,
but if I had to give a guess, I'd go with Barron.
They love Barron, and hey, guys from Nova Scotia are okay. Sometimes they're okay. Sometimes.
I'm a good Halifax boy, so I agree.
Was it Halifax proper, or are you more of a? Because there's anytime.
My mom.
Are you the other side of the bay?
Actually, I lived at the bay, literally in Bedford.
You were on that little defensive tour. You were literally in the island there with in the Halifax Bay. Jean Simard. Okay, we're gonna jump to this one because he loves your work on Montreal Hockey Now. Thank you very much. Honestly, appreciate it. Which prospects should the Habs try to move out before other teams realize they're overrated? And this is something that I love talking about because you collect all these prospects, tons of them. Oh my God, all these guys. A minute amount are going to make it to the NHL. So we already talked about Riley Kidney. He's a guy that I think they probably should look to move. Who are the other guys that probably won't have their skill set translate to the NHL? I mean, I know everyone's talking about Luke Tuck playing well this year. Luke Tuck's playing on a line with Macklin Celebrini, and he's behind Lane Hudson behind him. I love Luke Tuck's effort and his points this year, but he's not a guy that you see in your top 6 ever. Like no. Fourth year is getting point per game. That's kind of what Ryan Poehling did, but Ryan Poehling had more talent. Let's just put it that way.
And it was only a second or third year, but he was 19.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so who else? Like Cédric Guindon's one that I think you might want to look at moving. Even though I love my French Canadian boys, but do you see Guindon's skill set being good for pro?
I mean, I think Guindon has the ability, in my opinion, the intelligence to be a bottom 6 player in the NHL.
He's smart, exactly.
I think he's too smart. He's a very smart player. What I'm going to say is really going to piss off a lot of people.
Don't say Owen Beck, eh? Okay, were you going to say Owen Beck?
If it gets them the top line player they need.
Oh, for trade value. Okay.
I'm saying I don't think he's overrated, but I'm saying like I don't believe in overrating prospects that are like 19 and haven't shown what they can. Because if we started labeling them as such, Philip Meshar would be overrated. He's at 2 points per game in the OHL.
Yeah, so, he's leading the OHL in points per game. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So like it's very difficult for me. It's difficult for me because the Canadiens prior to this rebuild didn't have many good prospects, and most of them, because of how young their team are right now, are on the main roster anyway. Mm-hmm. So they're either in Laval or in Montreal, and very few are around. The one that comes to mind, who I don't think is overrated, but would make a ton of sense if you're looking at the way he's been playing so far, is Sean Farrell.
And Sean just mentioned him in the chat right as you said that. Sean Farrell, yeah, question.
I just saw it as I said it.
His playmaking is translating nicely, but I totally get what everyone's saying. He's not a guy that takes a ton of shots, and he doesn't drive the play at a professional level. He's a passenger at the professional level, and I'm not saying that's bad or anything, but there's a mitigated value.
Complementary offensive player.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
If there is value in moving him to a team that's devoid of offensive prospects, that's looking for a guy that could really complement and bring about the playmaking, that's a guy that you can kind of leverage because he had such a following in the NCAA
career,
and the way he played, like, and he's like he's no slouch. He's been playing very well in Laval as well. So like teams have noticed. So it's not like you're trading away still, a 10th player in your prospect pool. You're trading a guy that has legitimate aspirations to the NHL. So to me, that would be a guy that's making sense. The problem that I have is the fact that we have to think hard about this.
Why so?
The fact that because a team that's in a rebuilding situation should have way more in terms of legitimate prospects that you could think about.
There's too many Oliver Kapanens in the kitchen right now.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that's very much a Timmins issue and not a Kent Hughes problem. But
fair enough.
When you look at the team, because they've traded 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick and a third-round pick and a fourth-round pick to go and acquire guys like Kirby Dach, to go and acquire guys like Alex Newhook, I don't think it's prospects they're going to move it right now. I think it's going to be more of the picks they acquire, and a lot of those picks, in my honest opinion, haven't even been acquired yet. Kent Hughes went and had an interview with Sports Slovakia where he said,
I think there was a lot lost in translation in that interview, though, because it came off just weird when you hit Google Translate. Well, like it didn't make sense.
Even when they did the interview in English and they did the actual outtake, he said what he said. And
it wasn't translated? Oh, shit. Okay.
It was taken in a way that was out of context because it was at the end of the interview that he said that, like, do we need stars? As a kind of like a devil's advocate.
Oh, and that was when he also said the fans are used to seeing like Lafleur and Shutt. Listen, they were great and they're part of the holy trinity of the Habs, but they haven't played in Montreal in over 40 years. Fans want stars because stars are good. It's not
well, they help grow the game. They're good for the game.
Yeah, and
ideally they help put you over the hump if you know how to build the team.
Yeah,
that's the problem. You can point to Edmonton all you want, but I don't think Edmonton is bad because they have 2 superstars. Edmonton is bad because they've had 2 successive GMs that don't know how to surround them.
They got gifted generational talents, and they're just like, the dumbest thing, and I'll say this, I don't get mad very often, but I'm hearing Ryan Rishaug, who's in the know in Edmonton, saying they're willing to move everything except their first round pick. All right, cool. Go get yourself another, Raphael Savoie. That's not going to make an impact in 5 years. You're going to hold on to this while Connor McDavid, he's fuming right now. This guy is clearly upset. It is dumb. Like in the NBA, first of all, he would have requested a trade like immediately, but also they would have traded 17 first round picks just to get that one ring. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm annoyed at Ken Holland right now. Like it's such a disservice to hockey what he's doing. Anyways, I don't want to step on Game Over Edmonton's toes. Yeah. But Ken Holland's bad. And he's got Peter Chiarelli's stink on him too, so that sucks. It's not entirely his fault. But Jack Campbell wasn't signed by who signed? Was it
Holland?
Yeah,
of course it was Holland.
Then it's his own goddamn fault. It's his own goddamn
fault.
Ken
Holland is a great general manager due primarily to his Swedish scouting in Detroit.
Yeah, and you know what? Even that's super overrated. If we're being honest, there was like 3 good. Anyways, yeah. Well, we won't talk about the Red Wings.
I mean, when you draft generational talent, I mean that's.
Well, it was Rockstrom that did that. Right now, he works for the Habs. It was Rockstrom who found Lidstrom in that stuff. But there was like Lidstrom, Datsuk, and then that was pretty much the end of their. But hey, they did do a great job. But I will say this: I still think that what's his face Babcock's overrated, and so is Ken Holland. Carol Bovenlander is here asking, how did the Montreal game go? Listen, we're about to wrap up, and I want to thank everyone for being here. If you could click like, I'd appreciate it. If you want to click subscribe, that's up to you. Carol, it was the worst game the Montreal Canadiens played, I think, since Martin Saint-Louis might have taken over. Am I exaggerating, Marco? Maybe, eh?
Maybe, because I've seen some pretty bad ones, but it's definitely the worst game of the season.
And this is coming on the heels of him rallying the troops, really giving it to them before the California trip. And I don't know, I mean, he hit a point of diminishing returns with that, right? Eventually, when you don't want to run guys to their paces all the time. And even Martin Saint-Louis said it, like, it's got to be worth something. I remember Joël Bouchard would, that skate that everyone lost their minds over? That was part of every single Laval practice, no matter what. They gave the semi-bag skate at the end. And I remember asking Caden Primo, I'm like, that sucks, man. Like, it wasn't even a question. He's like, yes, it's the absence, because he made all his goalies do those wind sprints at the end. So yeah, it's got to be worth something, and I don't think you can repeat it at this point. They just got dominated. So Montreal did not win. They lost 4-0, Carol, unfortunately. But I'll say this. I don't know. I'm trying to look for Juraj Slafkovsky was okay. Give me one bright point there, Marco, before we go. What was the bright point tonight?
I mean, I thought, looking at the way that the LA Kings were playing, how physical they were, how much pressure they were putting on the Canadiens.
It could have been worse. Is that where you're going with?
No, the fact that, in my opinion, the fact that Jaden Struble didn't flinch.
Yes, there you go.
Was
That's a good one
to me.
That's a good one. And Jaden Struble looked very good since he's come in the league.
I'm looking at progress, and you have the benefit of the doubt when you can see them from Laval to Montreal. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for signs of sustainability, and the way that he plays is incredibly sustainable.
Simple, efficient game. That's really.
And if I'm going to answer Leon's question as we finish up, yes, but I don't think it's Montreal's.
Oh, so we're talking about Calgary's draft pick here. Yeah, and I mean, we didn't get into it, but there's been a lot of talk right now. Obviously, the Oilers are looking in at Montembeault. There's a bit of a contract issue with the Habs. So if that doesn't move, what's happening right now is that the Habs and Montembeault, I mean, that's how it happens in negotiations. They're not really aligning with... I'm guessing that Kent Hughes, just judging by his history, this is pure assumption, is really trying to get him on the cheap. And I totally get what Kent Hughes is doing. Listen, Samuel Montembeault has been great, but he's yet to... Last year he was a 906. This year is a 908. He's yet to crack 910 in his career. So let's just on se calme les popons there when people get offended that he might get traded. It's a great opportunity. And I'm not saying you have to trade him, but you have to look into it. So I'm glad that Kent Hughes is looking into it. Everyone's mentioning Claire. Yeah, Claire, I'm guessing, probably had some Thanksgiving stuff to do, but we're still going to end the show the same way we always do by saying goodbye to Claire. Before, Ryan Dodd asked a question. This will be the last one I throw at you. First non-goalie to be traded.
Sean Monahan.
Yeah. I mean, regardless, even if he's not producing, you can jump into your top 6. You can play on the PK, on the power play. He's good in transition. If you give him better than 2 boat anchors on his side, he can produce.
I think eventually Sean Monahan is going to get to scoring again,
Yeah.
and he's
Oh
going
yeah.
to probably top out at, or he's probably going to get to about 30 points before the trade deadline, which would position him for about 50 points.
And he's gonna be
A
dirt
50
cheap.
point do it
Dirt
all
cheap.
center
Yeah.
at $2 million is going to be worth a first round pick, in my opinion.
Oh, well, I want to like calm down on the whole first round pick thing because we got it wrong a lot, but that was with injuries, right? Right now, you're right. At the deadline, he cost
$2 million.
he cost like $36 on the cap at the deadline, yeah. Right? So yeah, okay, I agree with that. I'm gonna throw it in that they might move a defenseman before or right around that time too, but I don't be surprised, as Marco mentioned at the beginning of the show, they're looking at that excess of defensemen, but he mentioned more this summer, which would make sense. Marco's a lot more connected when it comes to that kind of thing. I think that if they get a healthy offer for one of their youngish defensemen, not named Caden Guhle, they're probably going to go. And as Marco mentioned earlier, Justin Barron's not going anywhere. He's just not, like, they love him. And
it's a left shot. It's a left shot.
Yeah, and he's a right shot, you mean. And he was a left shot that's getting traded, yes. And he was Kent Hughes' first like big trade, I guess. So yeah, you always remember your first. I do appreciate, hey Marco, we went on over an hour, which is,
it's all good.
Which is for us is like totally average. But yeah, Leon, as he mentions, Calgary's first round pick. That's the first I hear about
2025.
That. Yeah, so, and if you want to hear about the details, you can go, I don't even understand. It's literally the most complicated trade ever done. Kent Hughes himself with all the details. Don't forget, Kent Hughes is the guy that got, I'm forgetting his name. What's the name of the Chicago defenseman that gets paid way too much money?
Seth Jones?
Yes, he's the one who got Seth Jones' contract. He's the one who got Darnell Nurse's contract as well, if I remember correctly. Who's the other defenseman? He's gotten a lot of people a lot of money. He's really good in negotiations. So he totally just finagled the crap out of that one. If you go to our website, Montreal Hockey Now, or if you just Google Monahan trade stipulations, you'll get an article by Marco who describes it as simply as possible, but it's kind of like describing quantum theory in 10 seconds or less. You know, it's just like a insane contract by Kent Hughes. I bet you Kent Hughes is the least favorite guy already for GMs to deal with right now, Marco. Like, and I'm not saying it's bad or anything, but wow, he is a tough negotiator.
It's definitely something. But I mean, when you get contracts like what they signed Newhook and Kirby Dach to, no one's gonna complain.
Well, that's the thing, and we've seen him do great with even Rafael Harvey-Pinard. Listen, he's not playing all. Well, actually, he's playing better than his numbers look, but it's still value in that. And the Dach contract, there's value in that. Newhook contract, I'm still not sold on Newhook like some people. I honestly think.
Yeah, but even at less than $3 million, this is a good value he's putting.
Exactly. I was gonna go with my whole I was gonna give the negative spin before, but yeah, you're right. Forget the negative spin. There's still value there at $2 million. So one thing we do know is that Ken Hughes is a master negotiator, and right now he's not gonna overpay Montembeault, whether it's term or money. And I'm 100% behind him. Like I really think we're exaggerating how much value Montembeault brings to the Montreal Canadiens right now, you know. So yeah, and as the Stone Man mentions, that why is the chat flaming Jake Allen? I will say this, and it'll be our closing argument. Actually, I'm going to send it to you at the end just so you can tell everyone where you can go. Then you'll bring it back to me. But you can never blame a goalie when you get shut out. I don't care if he would have allowed 55 goals. Jake Allen tonight was abandoned by his defense. The Habs allowed the Kings to take the zone with the greatest of ease. It was like the Autobahn out there. So you never, two of the goals were weak. They should have never even made it into that zone. You know, Christian Dvorak made his nicest pass of the season to Kevin Fiala. You know, that's the issue. So yeah, I'm with you, man. Maybe it's because I'm a former goalie, but you never blame the goalies when they get shut out. All right, so one last plea. If you could click subscribe, but also come back on Wednesday. They're playing Columbus, and I'm guessing Janssen will still be in the AHL because Columbus doesn't like him. But that will be Ian Boisvert will be on that show with Andrew Berkshire. So I'm gonna take a little bit of a break. I've been with you 4 or 5 times in a row, and you've had to look at this thing for 4 or 5 games in a row. So I apologize, but I do thank absolutely everyone for showing up. I'm going to say bye, Claire, even though she's not here, which is suspicious. Neither is Kay, very suspicious. But we do have a lot of our regulars, which is appreciated. And we do have Marco D'Amico, who you can catch on TSN 690, every single radio outlet, French or English, and on Montreal Hockey Now. And they can find you on Twitter. Marco, what are you working on right now?
Man, there's definitely been some smoke to the fire that the Canadians are being followed. So I've been trying to do a little bit of homework on that. So I divulged a little bit on the show,
Yeah.
but we may have a little bit more to talk about over the next couple of weeks.
I love that. Oh, yeah, because you're really good at getting that information. I just kind of sit here and wait till someone tells me, and that's why I get almost squat. So I do appreciate your hard work on there, and we'll have you back in the second half of the season. So thank you very much. And as who was it that mentioned right off the bat, I was, Andrew's got some competition for best bald right now, because Andrew took the plunge, eh? So he's gone. He's
I
like,
saw it. I applauded him for it.
I still think you pull it off a lot better, if I'm being honest. Andrew got like that angry, what do you call that TV show that was repetitive with all the bikers there? Sons of Anarchy. He looks like an angry Sons of Anarchy extra, but he's the most loving like bear out there, so it's pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
Great dad and great person. Trinka, Leon, everyone, all our awesome guests as per usual. Jean, thank you for joining the fold. And Ryan, we will see you on Wednesday. I appreciate everyone for being here, even after that stinker game. And once again, make sure you go check out all of Marco's work. Very much in the know. Very much in the know. Not in the know, in the know. So we appreciate you on that. Thank you very much, Marco, and we'll see you in the second half of the season.
Sounds like a plan, guys. Everybody have a good night.
Bye, Claire. Bye.